developing female intuition.
It's Sunday morning on CBS, and here again is Jane Pauley.
John Lithgow played a transgender ex-football player opposite Robin Williams in the 1982 film, The World According to Garp. Now, Lithgow is performing a very different role on Broadway, to which he recently traveled by taxi with our Lee Cowan in tow.
We're going to go to 45th and 7th Avenue.
John Lithgow isn't one to ignore a camera, but it took him a while to notice ours during our shared cab ride in Manhattan recently.
What about a teeny little camera? I don't even see it. Oh my God! Why didn't you tell me? I didn't play that camera once.
Yes, cab cameras are a first for this veteran, but hardly cabs themselves. In fact, he used to drive one during his struggling actor days.
You said it was one of the hardest jobs you ever had? Well, you see our nice leg room here?
Yes, this is nice.
He doesn't have that leg room.
No.
And he's not 6'4". It practically crippled me. It was literally, I would limp home.
We were on our way to Broadway, where he's mounting a one-man show.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, pretty good, huh?
He's been honing it for years, trying to avoid the pitfalls of being all alone up on stage, as his terrible tale of the open fly will illustrate.
Did anybody notice this? And a few people raised their hands, and I said, "Why didn't you tell me?" They roared with laughter, and the show never went better. I come out there,
We took our seats on stage, and Lithgow began to explain just how this play got its start.
Those of us who reach 60, 70 years old, if you're lucky, you still have your parents with you. And it's a big, big part of your life, taking care of them and easing them into death.
That was the crossroads that Lithgow was at in the summer of 2002, when his then 86-year-old father, Arthur Lithgow, crumpled after major surgery.
He was a very buoyant, jolly man. And after that operation, he just gave up. He fell into silence and depression, and we all knew if he doesn't cheer up, he's just going to give up and he's going to die. So that was my task. I had to cheer him up.
Arthur Lithgow was also an actor, a director and a producer too, who caravaned with his family across the Midwest, pioneering regional theater, especially with his Shakespeare festivals.
It's where I was an apprentice actor and prop maker and mopper of stages and stitcher of curtains and costumes.
In fact, it was his father who first put him on stage at the tender age of 2.
I'm told I was very good.
When his father wasn't directing his son, he was reading to him, usually from a tattered book of collected short stories.
It's the closest we ever felt to him. He was a workaholic just like me, with his head in the clouds, just like me. Always thinking about the next play or the next performance.
But in that moment, when he sat down with the book,
in that moment, we were very close to him. We had a wonderful family. We're warm, interdependent, tight-knit.
So close that years later, when Lithgow found himself sitting at his dad's bedside, wondering just how to cheer him up, it occurred to him that reading those same stories back to him might just be the best medicine of all.
Specifically, the stories in this book. It's time to tell you about the book. It did wonders for an old man near death. And then when he'd gone to all that trouble.
Such wonders that Lithgow thought a theater audience could benefit from a bedtime story or two as well.
He put it on upside down.
He calls it Stories by Heart. There are 2 he performs, including the one that lit up his dad, where Lithgow plays no fewer than 11 characters, all by himself.
Does what? He is an assistant at a jellied eel shop. It's a daunting thing, right? It's very daunting, and it's very presumptuous to think that you can hold an audience for 2 hours all by yourself. It's downright arrogant. When I hold it in my hands now.
It's the first time Lithgow has played himself.
My father comes back.
That's a marked departure from the roles he traditionally takes that are nothing at all like him.
You want to kill me, don't you, Tucker?
He can be wildly unsettling, like when he played a serial killer on Showtime's Dexter.
after you played the Trinity Killer on Dexter, did people look at you a little differently?
I would say yes.
That's a man going of this place!
He goes crazy, playing crazy. Just look at him as the horrified passenger in the Twilight Zone for director George Miller.
Nothing was ever enough. He would constantly say, I want more. I want to see your face crack.
My name's Roberta.
His willingness to try anything carries with it risks. And, for the world according to Garp, critics told him there were plenty.
I loved that role.
Did you?
Yeah. People thought, oh, that's a career ender.
I was the tight end with the Philadelphia Eagles. Number 90, Robert Muldoon.
And you never worried about that?
Not in the slightest.
Alongside the suffering, I've also seen heroism.
He was the only American to play an Englishman in Netflix's The Crown. And what an Englishman indeed.
Something your dear late papa would certainly have taught you had he been granted more time to complete your education.
For a character actor, this was heaven.
Perhaps I can implore you not to feel the need to be too accurate.
The physical attributes of Winston Churchill were his. The voice, however, he had a bit of help.
Prevailing over fascism, evil, and tyranny.
There's this guy named Christopher Lyons over in England who's the great toothmeister among actors. Well, he created these two little blobs that clicked onto my back teeth that just swelled my face, but also changed my diction to his interesting, sloppy speech impediment.
His whole mouth was an echo chamber.
Yes.
Yes, we was not only his mouth, but his entire head.
Everything was resonant and nasal.
Will we be engaged in flattery or reality? I'm stepping on...
Despite all the drama and all the villainy, Lithgow is perhaps best known for making us laugh. By playing an alien disguised as a college professor in NBC's Third Rock from the Sun. It was a role so all-encompassing, it even changed the way Lithgow
Oh my God!
looked at himself.
I'm gorgeous!
You generally don't like watching your work, but with Third Rock, it's different.
That's true.
What is it?
Watching yourself, there is a certain anxiety that you're making a fool of yourself. But if your intention is to make a fool of yourself, I never did it better than on Third Rock from the Sun.
My life as an actor began on those drowsy evenings at bedtime.
His dad had seen him through all of it, watched him win Tonys and Emmys, and be nominated for not one, but 2 Oscars.
The more I read, the more of it came back to me.
But as Lithgow sat at his father's bedside all those summers ago, performing as best he could the stories from his youth, all that really mattered was time.
It was one of the most important months of my life. When my father was suffering like that, he had this feeling, particularly by the end of that month, when it was so sweet. It was time to go, but when it was time to leave, it was like leaving your children at summer camp. I mean, he was so worried that he wouldn't be able to sustain his high spirits. It was very, very tender.
His dad's spirits held for another year and a half. And in a way, those spirits are still on stage in those stories.
Good night, Dad.
A personal tribute from a son, who it turns out heard his dad's
I hope you feel better.
every word.
Next, a life-saving change at the Golden Gate Bridge.